They turned out to be completely unreliable assholes.
What is happening, Tim?
I'm the devil, Ryan.
And what is happening, everybody? Everybody out there listening to episode 65. Yes, this is episode 65 of Dismembering Horror, the podcast show where myself, Ryan McDuffie,
and myself, Tim Aslan,
we dismember, aka discuss, aka pick apart, aka just, talk about what worked for us, what did not work for us, and anything we found interesting or noteworthy about a horror film. How do we find our horror films we watched, Tim?
Well, sometimes we just take it from lists of quote-unquote good or the best horror films of all time.
Those quotes get bigger as we go along, right?
Sometimes it's just things that we knew we wanted to watch and we threw in the hat, and sometimes it's things that you suggested we watch and throw in the hat. So
our favorite.
Yeah.
And
unless it's fucking Arnold.
Well, it's our favorite process, not our favorite films.
Yeah. But it's good that we got Arnold from someone we know, so I can go hunt him down and kill him.
Yeah. And I still think about that film for better and worse.
Right.
So at least it provided something. Anyways, we're here today to talk about our oldest film we've talked about.
Is this truly our oldest?
Yes.
Wow.
There are a lot of horror films that are older.
Yeah, we did some stuff in the 30s.
Yeah, can I quiz you? Do you know what our oldest film was until now?
Oh, man. Well, old ones we've seen are like The Black Cat.
Ding, 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 ding.
Well, there it is.
How about our now third oldest film, which used to be our second oldest film?
We did The Black Cat and, what was the other one? Cat People.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
Yep.
So good.
So 30s and early 40s were our previous ones. Now we go to the 20s. Who would have thunk it, Tim?
No, really.
I know. But this is one...
coming off the heels of the magical hat pull.
Right.
Fuck.
That was cool. Well, Tim, I think it's appropriate that we had a little witchcraft.
That's right.
Help us choose
Holy
this
shit.
film. If you listened in when we picked this film last episode, I'd been wanting to listen to this. In fact, I'd wish I had picked it instead of Trench 11. I kind of wanted to watch it in October, for the witchy season. And I was thinking it the whole time, but we were watching Psycho movies. And then when it was Tim's turn to pull,
I recommended a movie from the 20s.
Yeah, well, what?
Cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
Oh, right,
and I think that added to your desire to pull.
Yeah, this was the film I really wanted Tim to pull, and he did it. So thanks.
I still don't quite understand how that happened.
Because
it's amazing.
We were meant to.
Yep, I guess so.
I think you're good at how did I say it?
Manifest destiny.
You're the glue that holds everything together, Tim.
I am sticky.
Great. All right. On that note, what's next? How do we get into our film Häxan here?
So I wanted to see if we could make a clarification because I was curious how you pronounce this.
It's Häxan.
It's. Come on, computer.
No, I've looked it up too. It's Häxan.
I want to hear the computer say
Häxan.
it. Oh.
Haxan.
Oh.
Häxan.
Haxan.
Oh. Cool. Häxan.
Häxan. Today. All right. Well,
cool. Okay.
We got to start with our trailer, which
Haxan.
that's right. All right. And okay, and I'll say it one more time to lead us into the trailer. Say it with me on 3, 2, 1. Haxan. as far as I could find, that was like the official trailer, but I'm guessing maybe it was for like the 2001 release.
There is so much in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, fuck. I'm sure there's many essays on it.
I was looking, I mean, I think...
Maybe not out, like, published, but I mean,
yeah,
just film essays from film schools.
Right. I was, oh, got it. It's been,
you know what I mean? Like,
assigned for, I wish we had it assigned to us in film school, but at the same time, I'm happy to discover it now and speak our essay aloud, find our thesis.
Yeah, right?
And that was a good, I mean, for you listening, that was merely a piece of music. I mean, since it's our silent film, but I think it set the mood.
It does.
Nonetheless.
Definitely my favorite tune in the movie.
Dance Macabre.
So good.
Yeah. All right. Well, we start off with our rating system where we tell ourselves, would we tell ourselves to avoid it, stream it, rent it, or buy it?
I'd buy it. I'd buy this. Like, the new Criterion Blu-ray is crazy.
Yeah, it came out just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. It's just so nuts, like, I think, I have this thing often when you see film or, like, the idea we have of the culture around the arts, or at least that I have sometimes, of, like, the early 1900s or like late 1800s, is that it's kind of dorky or cheesy or like just kind of lowbrow. And I forget that, like, it's the same. Like, it's not that long ago.
No.
At all.
Right. I get it.
And like the technology didn't necessarily allow for it to be slick or quote unquote sort of cool and modern, whatever. But when you think about it, like they're thinking about and feeling the same shit.
Yeah.
And this, I think, has a lot of that, like, maybe it's the culture around what was acceptable to, like, put out there that gets kind of, like...
Well, it was like...
The edges get kind of
They could put out
down.
more than they could, like, 20, 30 years later or whatever.
Well, that's for sure, right. Right. This was actually... You're right. This was surprising to me, remembering that this is pre-code.
Yeah.
Like... They do, like, they're fucking, like, hanging a dead baby over a cauldron. Like, it's fucked up.
They put it in the cauldron.
Yeah, it's like, holy shit.
Right?
But, like, there's that realization of, like, and this is true, I think you see it more or realize more in, like, quote-unquote high art, you know, that shit was, you know, amazing. But it's, like... film at the time I don't think was quote unquote respected or like thought of as like, you know, a high artistic
It did really
thing.
well at the box office at the time.
I
and it was
fucking
popular.
bet. Can you imagine?
Wait, so is all
Okay,
that...
sorry, that's all to say that you should, like, I would buy this to, like, kind of be transported back to a time where, like, they were exploring this shit, but, like, with some of the best, like, artistic brain to, like, wrap around...
Yeah.
And do shit that's wild. Like, witches are flying on brooms in this.
Well, you could also...
That's fucking amazing.
I agree with you completely. And at the same time, there's something, though, that does put them in a unique position as far as being made, as far as, like, the, 1919. It was released in 22, but made, the years leading up to it, as far as they are just that much closer to the source material in a way. So whatever imagination is on display, even though for them there was still a distance, for us it can become that much more powerful because it's all just old stuff.
Right.
I watching it, and this could have just been like first time watching, I was thinking at times, just because, it is like watching a silent film that's 2 hours can feel a little long. And some of my segments were, like the standouts versus the others. There's 7 segments. But like after sitting on it and watching the trailer, just the imagery alone makes me like proud to have it on my shelf. So I don't know. And I've been feeling so like we've had, I don't know, after wanting to buy all the Psycho movies and presenting it to the Lighthouse, felt like maybe I have to offset it. But I don't want to regret it, so I'll say buy it for now too, especially with that beautiful Blu-ray release.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty sweet. I know what you mean. It is a lot. Like, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
So, do you want to do a summary?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just going to set something to do. I feel like I'd probably end up wanting to watch it every 2 or 3 Halloweens, though, or October. Right. That's why I have it myself.
Certainly it's a fucking amazing movie to have on at a party.
That's probably
Can
more
you
the...
imagine, like, the fucking... That's just playing, and, like, every time you look over, you're going to see one of those images?
Yeah.
Fuck, yes.
Well, let's throw a Häxan party one year.
Yeah.
We can afford it.
Shit.
Okay, sorry, summary.
Yeah.
Well, as I said, 7 parts, and the cool thing about this film I didn't know going into it is it's a half documentary, half docudrama, I suppose. But the docudrama parts are sort of large enough portions that are, kind of have an ongoing story to them, and as well are self-contained, that I don't know, it feels like it is plenty narrative too, in a sense.
Yeah.
But it starts off with a first one that's pure, just kind of setting the stage of here's the history, we know it, and then as far as
witches.
Imagery of witches, a lot tied to how ancient people would sort of tie the idea of witchcraft and demons to disease, and sort of maybe that was the early sort of powerful metaphor it all arose from, was sort of attributing disease to this stuff, which is interesting because then that's kind of the end note too, that we're still there in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And then we get into the second section. I'm just seeing if there's any way to avoid going section by section.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you how to avoid it. You don't remember which section is which.
Yeah, exactly.
That's where I'm at.
It's like one of them jumps back. I think it's the first one jumps back to the 1400s, 1440 something, I want to say.
Well, there's the whole thing of the witch trials.
That's that one.
That I think is the second one, right? Well, I don't know. It might be the third one.
It's them going after it sort of is like, here's a sort of average day in the witch's home, and she makes the love potion for her friends.
Right. Yeah, that's first, and then the one where they're like, there's a family.
Yeah, and then the one that gets into, that's my favorite, is the woman Apollone's dream sequence where she goes up to the castle. And then that's when it feels like the last couple kind of get into the whole more witch trials, like them abducting the witches and forcing them to confess to something and drowning, all that good stuff. All the while still incorporating cutaways and imagery to satanic beings. Yeah. And babies getting taken away. And what are just some others? I forget the little stories going on in there.
There's the whole like ceremonial stuff in the forest.
Yeah.
Kissing the devil's butt.
Right. What's the one like the person on the bed and they're gonna pour? It looks like they're. So
that's the beginning of the witch trial one, because remember they said there's sort of this Inquisition type thing going on where like clergy dudes go around kind of like fishing out for witches.
Yeah.
And so that dude is a clergyman and the man of the house is ill. And they do a cool ceremony which is fucking freaky as hell. They take boiling lead and put it in a little ladle and wave it over the sick guy. Ooh, that's really dangerous. I thought he was going to pour it on him. I was so freaked out.
Yeah.
I was like, no way. And then they toss the lead into water, and whatever form it takes as it cools and hardens, he then reads it in quotations, and then it's like, there's a witch around.
Yeah.
The next person you see is a witch, and she sees,
and then
peasant who has come in.
And then so the ending is kind of all on this note of we jump back to, you know, the filmmakers sort of talking like first person, like gives demonstrations about the real life torture devices they used, and then sort of ends on a note of making comparison to like mental institutions nowadays.
Yeah. And specifically what was called like the quote unquote condition of, I'm going to quote unquote all day, the condition of hysteria in women, right?
So which
was the modern sort of whatever.
And what, as far as if that's the like,
there's also the nun's story,
right? So what was the ending? What was like the culmination as far as the narrative or the the fiction pieces, I guess, based on events? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it just I don't know how to wrap that around. I mean, it's like they're sort of saying that I mean, a lot of it's basically saying like women are fucked up.
Well, no, I guess I meant the if the last section 7 was what I just described, I forget like how the 6th one ends and culminates.
I thought the 6th one was the one, oh my God, that's not the nun one. Now I don't remember. There's a whole fucking one with just like nutso shit with the devil and like the devil in the forest and the pig guys and the gremlin like claymation dude that comes out. That whole section was just fucking out of this world.
Yeah.
But I can't really remember exactly what was going on. I was just sort of transfixed with the images.
Exactly. Same here. It's a lot to take in.
Yeah.
On a first viewing, especially.
But, you know, I think the overarching theme is kind of woke in a way of like...
He said it, folks.
You know? It's like we've been hanging women out to dry forever... And it's bullshit.
Yeah.
But then it comes with the hysteria thing. Then I kind of was like, wait, are they saying that it's legit that women are hysterical?
It's women and, again, like mentally.
Yeah.
I don't know. What's the phrase to say?
I don't know. Mentally
differently
ill.
abled.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's some interesting stuff about
and it looks like
the point of view of that.
And it was the nuns like one that was the very last one before part 7 of like the nun coming out with a knife, and then look at this still of the devil like threatening.
Yeah, it just starts to get nuts. I like the nun one a lot.
Yeah, it was good.
I mean, all of them are good.
Should we get into why it's also good?
Yeah.
For our first section.
What a summary that was.
Like anyone and anything, we're just here doing our best. All right. First section, what worked?
What worked for you? What worked for you?
It worked like a charm, Smith.
What worked? What worked for you?
I mean, let's just get it out of the way. The devil is the greatest thing ever.
Yep.
That dude... If I don't go as that dude for Halloween next year, I have made a huge mistake in my life.
Get it right with the fingers and everything.
I know. I got to gain about 20 pounds.
No, you just kind of,
just puff it out.
You work with what you have.
He has the best face.
Yeah, well, just does it so well.
This is like comedy gold too. Before I'm sure I don't know how much of this they were sort of trying to be funny about it. I mean, I think to a certain degree it was purposeful.
Well, I don't think it's funny, but it's that they were doing a good, like with kind of devilry and witchcraft. That for me is associated like a lot with kind of where the movie Mother goes, of kind of unadulterated, not like revelry. I don't know if that's the right word, but just sort of eschewing your sort of any like care for anything else and only directing to kind of a selfish I get revelry. So it's like that devil's performance. That's how I'm getting at, is why there's a certain amount of fun in their performance, is because that's about it. Like,
in how he is kind of shot, like he pops into frame a lot, which is fun. It's just funny.
Well, see, I
love that.
Devilish.
Right.
It's like,
yes. Yeah, it really is. I used to get accused of being devilish by like my grandparents.
Yeah.
You little devil. What? That kind of shit.
That's why.
Can you imagine?
Why you got to be him next Halloween, as you said. Yeah, I wrote in our What Worked notes, yeah, boy, did we love that devil. So
it's
amazing.
just so good. I mean, the design is nuts. The like, I don't know if you can call it, is it costuming or makeup?
Both, yeah.
It's all of that shit. The pig head guys, the weird other devil thing that's sort of on the cover. It's got like this sort of slit eyes. It's
the
like
gargoyle-ish one.
Fuck,
that's
dude.
incredible. Like, really just, really powerful, disturbing imagery, honestly.
And I think this is sort of the point I was trying to make earlier about why I'm a buy, is that like thinking about the time in the world and like making that shit and putting that out. It's like, that's really intense art that is very, very specific and very well done.
And you can tell that it came from, too, what works so well is the filmmaker Benjamin Christensen just inundated himself with, the books available on all this stuff. And they're seen in the film a lot. He takes out his little,
love this.
pencil
so
and kind of gives us a little...
at things.
Yeah. Here it is. Here's that devil.
Oh, man. Yeah, I think you... And you can. You could just go, which I did, like go online and... you look up, how did we say it?
What? Häxan?
Häxan. And you just go to images and it's like every fucking one of them is nuts.
Yeah.
In the best way. And it's like, in a weird way, I almost forgot as the movie went along how incredible each little set image is.
The witch's den.
Because you're just in it.
Right.
But holy fuck, you pull it back up and it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
What the hell? So that, it really is impressive to me.
My whole favorite, I already kind of mentioned it in the summary, my favorite sequence and just imagery wise and everything was, I don't know how you say the name, Apollone's Dream Castle, I'll call it. I think it was the second or third segment where, remember, it's where she first gets dropped, all the wakes up to being covered with gold coins or whatever.
Oh my God.
And then they all disappear from her. And then
that must have blown people's minds. Yeah. Can you fucking imagine? Movies didn't exist. Moving pictures were brand fucking new. And suddenly you're watching this shit?
Yeah.
And coins are fucking disappearing.
And how about, and then that's the same sequence where the stop motion little devil creature
I love that.
comes out of the door.
This must be your most favorite thing on the planet.
It was great. I love that one.
That's right in your wheelhouse.
Yeah. I wrote stop motion bird demon. Incredible. And then just leading into it were just the exteriors of the castle too. It felt so dream-like, and how just it looked and was sequenced accordingly, how it was plotted. But then why I said you were talking about having weird dreams last night, right before we started recording, Tim, I said hold that thought. What were you describing was the fear point, or the kind of
it's the anxiety dream where you have a task or a place to be and you keep getting delayed and you can't get to it, or people keep interrupting it, and then suddenly they're like, why aren't you there? And the whole time you're feeling this anxiety of fuck, I need to get there, but I'm focused on this other thing.
I have those a lot, and it's kind of when I'm chasing something that's pleasureful in any way, or should make me happy, versus necessarily like just a goal or a task. I want to say that's a flavor of it. My friend, she said to me, "Oh, those are frustration dreams."
Okay.
And you saying that's how this scene played out too. She gets the coins and then gets them taken away.
Sure,
and then it really hit me too. Like you saw it coming when she sees like through a sort of a room with an outside wall and entrance that's like a face, and inside of it through the door are people dancing and having the ball.
Oh, right. And she runs up to the door and it closes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then what always happens, then there's something else behind her that's like sort of ushering her in. Oh, come this way now. And that just captured that feeling so hard for me. It's like, even though it is your dream in that the phrasal way and our the literal way, it you just can't quite catch a break. And I think that's why, imagery plus just that feeling and how it did that, probably more accurately than I've seen in any dream sequence in anything. It's my favorite.
It's a good baseline sort of place to depict, right? Because everybody knows that feeling. And even if you're not sort of like on the surface, like keying into it, like consciously, like you'll get the underlying feel, which is a good place to start. I think a big thing for me too, sort of to that point, is the acting performances are, granted, there's a stylistic aspect to this of the time, but like they're fucking really good. Like they're doing what you do in that style very well.
I think it's that the subject matter fits the style so well.
Yeah.
Like, because it is that, coming straight off of theater. The director, Benjamin Christensen, who also plays the devil, acts in it. Right? Thing of note. He comes from a theater background.
Shocking.
But then, much to his dismay, kind of had to put that on hold forever because he had vocal issues.
Oh, wow.
Like serious ones.
Well, silent film was
exactly
perfect for him.
So getting to translate that all to silent film and play this devil character and that acting style. So I guess when I was getting to, I started off saying point being like, we have the older women character in it.
She's so fucking good.
Or I should say characters, like throughout, who are all accused of being witches, and you can tell like them as well as everyone in it, like you were saying, they have an awareness of how this was real stuff going on. So, and that's serious. You can't get more serious, than that, as far as how people are treating each other. So to then put that, like, it's fully deserving of being that dramatic in my eyes, of putting that much weight behind it when it's someone's close up and they're crying. Right. It's like real stuff that's behind it.
It's the realest thing. And we've talked about this a bunch. When you're accused of something and there is no defense, that is so fucking scary. And to like have these the close-up, like singular portrait style shots of women's faces be like in that state of I'm fucked, is so powerful and so fucking intense to like experience. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And the faces that they chose, like the subjects that they chose to be those faces are incredible.
Right. That's just exactly one of my deepest horrors, is that idea of like someone torturing you to admit to something that's not true, and then the circumstance of the witchcraft is like, oh, but you know what, we have a way of figuring this out. We're gonna drown you, and if you are a witch, you'll float to the top, but if you aren't one, then you'll die. But at least we'll know. It's like, Jesus,
It's so fucking twisted.
Yeah.
It is so twisted. You know what's really fucking twisted is that it's essentially what's happening today too. Like the shit still goes on, right? Like creating these totally arbitrary like metrics to get you to be right or wrong.
That's okay.
That thing fucking scares the shit out of me. Like the one that pops in mind is the one where he's like, if you're not a witch, you will be crying right now. And the woman's like, I just walked in the room. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Just you're demanding that I do a thing that is incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to do on command.
So
to prove my innocence of a thing, that's so fucked up.
This is probably the thing I was thinking most on, and like where the horror comes from in that, and kind of a conflicting thing about that too. And I think a lot of why it's so, and how I describe it is like their utter certitude in the matter. And that is something we still see today of like, this is the reality of the situation. You know, like when we've talked about people, you know, as we've put it, not being open-minded, not being skeptical towards everything, thereby they aren't true skeptics. Right. They aren't open-minded to the idea that science has more to tell us about our world. Right. And when I mean, of course, that's, you know, here, I mean, we still say, we see people are certain that it's okay to put kids in cages today. Right. Like, what the heck? Like, it's still happening in that sense. But
And nothing you can say breaks down their worldview of right and wrong in that context. They're like, they're shocked that we are like, what are you doing?
It's only a slow leading by example is how we progress as humans, I think. But,
you know what's funny is that like there's a very, I mean, it's not funny at all. It's like it's extremely purposeful, I'm sure. The Willem Dafoe character in Lighthouse is basically doing what this movie is doing.
Right, the utter certitude.
Yeah, I mean,
like the Lighthouse.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's okay for me to torture you to paint, to repaint everything or whatever he says.
Right.
But trying to pick it apart of, so I kind of aside like the obvious of just knowing they're certain about these things that are wrong, like how to dive deeper into that horror. I think a part of it that is so disturbing is that there's like a part of me that admires such like certitude. You know what I mean?
I don't.
There's
you
that part
explain.
of us. I think to be certain or to like carry out actions like kind of okay, as a smaller example, like, you know, I loved it so much in the film when they're like, oh well, this male sparrow that I caught in May, I boiled its blood, you know, that kind of specificity and certainty behind that. There's something I don't know, almost admirable to that, because it puts you so like, if kind of, you know, again, like the mentality, philosophy, how to be okay in life, how to reach a good place, is you have your utter attention to the present moment. Right. And that a lot of times looks like a certain certitude.
Yeah. I think there's something really comforting at times about an utter confidence to arbitrary thought or expression, because the world is fucking nuts, like, right? It's like we're trying to pull meaning out of things all the time.
It's like,
that's
look at
how we're built.
Yeah, a sand mandala. Like, you know,
I don't even know what that is. What's a sand
It's like
mandala?
A meditation thing of, you know.
Oh yeah, those
like,
are cool.
Like slowly laying out, you know, different colored sand. It's just the idea of something that takes a long time, and you're just doing it with such extreme attention, aka certitude.
I mean, it's how con artists are fucking good at what they do. Yeah. Because they just say, this is what it is. Well, and we go, wow.
It's that, yeah, exactly.
Cool. This guy knows what he's talking about.
Yeah. It's that, paradox of, we require like questioning our human condition and how we're doing things in order to progress, yet it is that very questioning that takes us out of the present moment. That's the horror I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, and people want to be comforted.
Yeah, and I love the kind of in-between stuff of you see that in the film where, you know, the extreme that we already talked about of what they're doing to these women, but then also just like how the two women amongst themselves, zero hesitation to use a extreme love potion on someone. You're like, oh yeah, you need a stronger one? Great, I'll get it for you.
Yeah.
And then also like kind of a recurring imagery throughout the film is sloppy, intense eating, like with your hands and that kind of gorging.
Yeah, like this. Yeah, the slovenliness of of men in a way. I mean, there is a lot. I mean, maybe I'm pulling this out of it, but there is a lot of sort of like hanging, as much as the story or the emphasis is on how the culture of the time or the time that they're talking about, depending on what section we're in, has kind of hung women out to dry. Then there are these little like inserts of I think kind of commentary on like, yeah, but look at the dudes who were doing it, and they depict them in these like slovenly, just sort of grotesque ways.
They're nothing we want to aspire to be. Right.
And I think that's a brilliant sort of counterpoint to have. That's not really it's not said in any way. They're just like the story is kind of just straight up saying like, here's what was going on with witches, and we're just going to talk about that. But then there's this underlying stuff imagery wise that is like, but also this is what we're talking about.
Right.
Which I think is fucking cool. It's just smart filmmaking. It makes like gives depth to what we're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, I hope this is taken as intended. Like obviously I'm aware, but like there is you know, the oppressor is being just as that's where it's tricky to say that, you know, just as oppressed, I want to say, but like, but
well,
not
they're
that,
being,
you know what I mean? Like
a light is being shown on them.
Yeah.
And I think that's important.
That's what I'm trying. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Like you should be like, hey, remember also like, fuck these guys.
Yeah, exactly. Here.
Yeah.
Specifics just from the beginning. The opening shot of the director where he's like, I think he even says like Benjamin Christensen is my name. I forget, but it's like there's this opening shot that's like first shot of just his face, you know, not in devil makeup. It was great. It was this kind of, hadn't seen anything like that, but worked so much fun seeing his face come on.
Yeah.
And then that leads us into his tone, which I just thought like, which is the tone of the film and the way of speaking of things, which I thought was incredible how it was super matter of fact how he's presenting everything, like, oh, here's this actual research, this is what happened, and then this and then this and this, where it's engaged yet indifferent. It doesn't feel like it's trying to be extra scary or spooky or anything.
No, yeah.
So therefore it makes it that much scarier.
Right.
When it's just like, here are the facts.
In and of itself, it's kind of that certitude. It's sort of like, here it is.
Yeah. And then that was easy to then forget, or make me forget, that just how much imagination was on display once it came to the actual visuals and the creation of everything, because you're so caught up in that idea. Oh, this is just, you know, the research being shown. Okay, here's a reenactment. But it's like there's so much creativity on display. Like remember the early one where it's like the little maquette doll things of like the sort of scene of hell we just saw in the trailer of
yes,
so cool.
Yeah, the mechanized little, he said this is like a thing that he found like in the
oh, I believe it. Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck, is that part of the film, or did he actually find it? Yeah. Or did the filmmaker make the thing? It's so fucking cool.
Yeah.
Like this big either way.
And kind of like it's a small world clinky dink like Christmas display, but I love that
he's like, and look at like the intensity, I can't remember the word that he uses, but like the joy or revelry that these two particular demons take in like stoking the fire.
Yeah.
And then it's like their movements are just super like and it's just fucking great.
Right. Wait, are you talking about the guy churning the pot?
No, oh my God. No, but that's amazing as well. one of my favorite things, the like faux masturbation of the devil with the butter churner.
Yeah, where he's looking
Brilliant.
he's looking right at like
That would
whoever.
never fly in the post-code era. No. You know, like they would be like, no, you need to go to jail.
Not only do you have to cut your film, but also you're going to jail. Yeah, totally.
Oh my God. It's so fucking good. I think that's kind of what I mean about to me, it's just humorous. Like I get joy out of seeing that type of imagery because it's just like, yeah, fucking this is the world, dude. People are fucking nuts.
Yeah, I mean, it's cathartic, I think, because humans are representative. I mean, we have everything in us. We are the world, you know, kind of physicalized in a way or whatever, manifested.
Yeah.
And so that means like that includes all the hell side of things. Like we have thoughts that would horrify us that we ever think, like horrible things. Sure. And then luckily we have
like what keeps us in line,
right?
Is having the thought and being like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't do that.
What keeps us in line is that outside observer, like looking. We always have that us looking at that.
But I think there is a large undertone in this movie of what it means or how the culture of the various times looked at desire and feelings of like sexuality or just like wanting to seek out pleasure, but knowing that it's not okay to do that. The oppression of having desire as a cultural thing. And like that to me is the larger undertone of all of these stories. The women are like, they're kind of set up being like, these are people who want a thing, like they have a desire, a sexual desire, and they're not allowed to express it. And so what's the result of repressing that desire? They like the nuns having their outputs like that's as clear of a fucking thing. A nun who has like decided to be a servant of God and like no longer be a like sexual person. So they've chosen to repress this part of them. And then it's like, for some reason, when they all get together, they fucking flip out. It's like, yeah, no shit, you'd flip out. You've been imprisoning yourself in a bunch of different ways.
You really should watch the last film I recommended, The Devils. I think you'll appreciate it.
Okay, yeah. But I think that's an important commentary that they get away with here. You know, that probably wasn't super popular. It still isn't that popular. Like women expressing themselves sexually is still not that popular of a fucking thing to put out in the world.
I'm trying to think,
which is fucking so dumb.
I'm trying to think like how it's like the how they demonize, they witchize the younger woman, exactly as you described, but then like the older woman too. It's like, what is there in between? And it's essentially nuns that are the ones that are okay in their eyes, like because you either have the young woman, too pretty, too much sexual desire, they must be a witch, or the older ones who like, because they're lonely, let's say, or because they are actually even the opposite of that, finding joy in whatever they do with their fellow women friends. Oh, that must mean you're a witch.
Or even worse, because they no longer represent a sexual being, because they've passed that in an age that they are invalid as a human, and therefore we can demonize them as the bad guy, as the other, or like the culprit of something. Yeah. It's so fucked up.
And it seems though, I mean, I hope I'm not wrong in this, but that it is the like single women or women who haven't married or have kids that are specifically
I think there is something to that for sure. Yeah, because the oldest woman who sort of gets accused of witchcraft is basically, I think seems to be sort of just a peasant, like a homeless peasant who wanders around and, you know, asks for bread or whatever, you know, and the town is like cool with her until they're not, you know what I mean? And that's a really scary thing.
Well, the town's cool with her until all these clergymen or whatever show up. And there was that part in the movie where the narration of the description was like, every time the clergymen showed up in a town, there would be an influx of witches. What? Coincidence?
Yeah, oh my God. Also, the fucking, I want to know if this statistic was right. They said something like 40 million fucking women were accused of witchcraft and like killed in this era.
Would have been good to look up before the show. I don't know.
Shit, dog. That's a lot in like a 10-year period or something like that.
Well, I mean, no, the witch hunts were going on for a long
more than that
time.
Either way, they're killing people for a thing that doesn't exist.
Yeah. Their fear exists.
Yeah, that's true. Back to some of the set things. Do you remember in the early bit when they're describing how I think it was the Egyptians viewed the world, and they built this cool set of like mountains and a valley, and then like a dome over top.
It looks like
with hanging stars,
like flat Earth models I've seen or something.
Yeah, I know it did, but the like fucking construction of that and how it's shot is just so amazing. They said how everything was sort of surrounded by mountains. That the sky was being propped up by those mountains. Yeah, by the pillar, like metal pillars. Mm-hmm. And he takes the pointer and like points out each pillar. Yeah. I love that. It's so fucking good. Yeah, and that's what led me into that what we already talked about, this idea of like utter certitude of how is that any different really, like for those people back then. Oh yeah, no, this is the world. Great. Now I can continue on making shoes with my utter certitude because I'm utterly certain about the sky being propped up by mountains on my side. That's right. Like the comfort that comes with defining things, regardless of how wackadoo the definition may or may not be. Right. You know, it's just like if some authority comes in and says, no, it's this. Actually, that's scary to me. It is scary. And I was trying to explain to him like flat earthers in that context and like to make a point, like, no, I'm not a flat earther to make that clear for what I'm about to say, but like to make a point to him. And he's like, yeah, you know, cause it's like, what you tell these people like, oh, but we know that the earth is round. And I was to make a point. I'm like, but you don't know that. Like you're trusting our sources. And that's where flat earthers come from, as people like this, it comes down to trust issues and control issues of not being willing to trust. So it's like, actually they're technically right when they say you don't know. Like it's like, we don't know, we're all not in the simulation. It's that whole. Right. But then when they like run an experiment that sort of backs up the science that brought the greater public to realize that the earth is round, they're like, this must be wrong. And it's like, yeah, that's the thing with these people. It's like, no matter what it is, they always have some kind of like way to say, oh, but it didn't take this into account. Which is exactly what went on with the witch shit. Yeah. Exactly that shit. They will just make up stuff and be like, oh, she just sort of proved that we're full of shit. So, but her shoes are brown. No, they don't have that thought of she just proved we're shit. Their mind is just, that's interesting. It works so quickly because that's their reality. They aren't consciously. You're right. You know, it's just on to the next proof point. Oh, wait, why would that be? Oh, because of this. It's not a. That's so fucking scary. It's not duplicitous. Oh my God. That's what's scary. Yeah, it's not duplicitous. I think that's a big part of what I like about the movie, though, is because it is pointing at that and then showing kind of the absurdity of it. You know, with all of the ceremonial, like, devil stuff and Satan stuff in the woods, like, having people kiss the devil's ass is kind of a middle finger to people who believed in witchcraft, or, you know, who were the culprits of the witch trial type stuff. It's sort of being like, you guys are fucking dumb. You know, let's make fun of you. Wait, what do you mean? I'm saying, like, I think that there's an aspect of... An aspect? Yes. An aspect of irony, I guess, of, like, the depiction of the lore around the witchcraft and around the like Satan worship and demonology, whatever, that's kind of putting a mirror up to the people who bought into that stuff and perpetuated the like negative stuff that they used as a tool to like accuse people of things. That's a bad explanation how is that of what I'm saying. Connected to kissing the devil's ass? Well, I think that like kissing the devil's ass is sort of representative representative of that thing. It's kind of making fun of how fucking ridiculous the whole thing is.
Well, I don't, because I see though that is what that act represents though, is them saying we embrace this ridiculousness in the face of your normalcy. Like that's, I think,
who's the we in that
the people
sentence?
kissing the ass. The people who are worshiping the devil are like, we are embracing the devil in us.
Yes, inside of the story. Yes, I'm saying as the filmmaker depicting that is sort of a reflection on the absurdity of how
that act,
the world looked at all of this stuff.
Well, I think it's both things. That's why it's scary, and that's why it can elicit laughter and horror.
Yeah. There is a couple images that I just want to make note of here that I think are...
How about the birthing scene?
The birthing scene.
Where the woman, she makes reference to like birthing devils or something, and then we see it happen, and it's like the devil creature, they're just like walking out of between her legs.
Oh, yes. It's so fucking good.
And, that was great, yeah. And then like, yeah, you said, what is it? Like the cat people coming out of the church at night. That was neat. Fuck
yeah. There is something about how do I describe this for people to let them know which one I'm talking about? It's the scene where the woman it's a woman laying well, she's basically laying on her side and she's naked and we're seeing her back. And the devil's long fingered clawed hands are reaching down and like poking at her body. Mm-hmm. It's that sort of stuff. Oh God. There's something so beautiful and like creepy and amazing. I don't know. It's very pleasing to me for some reason. The art, like the art direction of it, I guess. It makes me feel like I'm looking at some Renaissance painting or something. It's just got this like really cool feel, but then it's got the gothic kind of, dark shit. Actually, very similar to the artist I mentioned a couple episodes ago, Llewellyn. Mm-hmm. His stuff kind of feels very much like in that world or this world. And yeah, I don't know why it's so pleasing to me. I think just because it's, I don't know, dark and fucking weird and cool and freaky and kind of is pointing at mortality. And
you think like specifically kind of in that like the Dracula-esque way of like in face like young womanly beauty, like the opposite end of that kind of
I mean
infiltrating that,
right? And I think if I'm kind of picking it apart, I think there's something nice about putting what is considered sort of the imagery of fertility next to the imagery of death and like skulls and like, so it's sort of, it's two ends of a spectrum of, life and death in one image.
Yeah.
And then when it's this black and white, or in these cases, sort of the blue wash, whatever,
it's yin yang.
There's so much like contrast, literal and figuratively going on, that I think there's something just really evocative and pleasing for me about it.
It's pure. It's whole.
Yeah.
I guess it was the last section. I'm loving it through the imagery, before the imagery, but it was that last section that really won me over and took me by surprise, where all of a sudden we had that real world context for this all again. And that's kind of like what I was saying with, oh God, maybe this is a little different, but how I was saying I guess it's the opposite for a reason. It was doing the same thing. Where I remember the lighthouse, I was saying by not knowing whether this is real or not, it makes it seem that much more real. Mm-hmm. This one, how it affected me the same way, but it did a completely different way, where it's like you get so caught up in these recreations and the art direction and everything that you feel like you're just kind of watching a safe narrative film. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, when we zoom back out and go, oh no, this is all, real stuff as far as people's belief in it and yada yada, and what it's based in.
People actually got tortured with these tools, and killed.
More so than that, is there, again, like certitude and conviction in the existence of, you know, the devil and and things like that, of that nature.
Yeah.
Because when you had the old woman as the actress who we've kind of gotten to know in this and have just gotten caught up in her performance, all of a sudden, you know, she says in real life, she let the filmmaker know in real life, this is, again, in the movie, like it's presented. Oh, she told me, this woman, quote, "The devil is real. I have seen him sitting by my bedside." And then we go directly, then it's like, oh, and then now we'll show you what it looks like. And then it goes to the book and his pencil just points at it. And I wanted to point out, just flashback, jump back to our episode, Elementary, the blacksmith and the devil.
Yeah.
Like the picture that he points to of what the devil looks like Sartell in that movie, which is like the goat-legged kind of demon top. And then too, the imagery that really got to me is like, oh, but then as time went on, rather than being visited by a literal devil in the night, it would be represented by a cloaked doctor coming in the middle of the night. And that's who the big bad in Elementary is. It looked exactly like that.
Right.
The cloaked doctor, a little more, you know, like astute, kind of smart, glasses maybe, you know, top hat, that kind of look. But I mean, what I started off saying with all this though was, to all of a sudden just be thrown with, like, you have someone who you've almost gone to trust because they've shown you their vulnerability in their performance, saying in real life, oh yeah, I've seen the devil.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
And then just that classic imagery, oh yeah, just sitting on my bed, like.
Well, and I think there's kind of a furthering of that idea just in terms of filmmaking. When you create a fantastical world and you allow the audience to get kind of wrapped up into it, and then you pull back into reality, you know, when Christensen starts cutting to like the actual torture devices, it's like it's reminding you how fucking real, even though we've lived in this fantasy world for a little bit.
The actual ones used too, I'm sure.
Exactly.
These aren't recreations.
The starkness of that, like going from the fantasy world to this reality and being like, oh yeah, and just so you know, what we've been talking about by and large was literally happening.
Yeah.
Maybe not maybe not the like witches flying through the air stuff, but you know,
people believed it.
People bought it, and the result of them buying it was pretty fucked up. I think, like, there's, you know, Schindler's List does
Again,
this.
To my point that I said to my friend about the flat earthers, is Tim, you don't know.
Right. Yeah. But Schindler's List does this really effectively, where you spend this whole time being in this black and white world, and it's easy to kind of slip into the narrative story of it all, and then cutting from that to color and having the survivors walk over the hill and like I think they lay stones down. I don't remember exactly what the act is, but seeing the actual survivors and going, oh right, this story that I just watched was real people, and there they are. That is a super fucking powerful move to make in a movie.
Yeah, especially when something's so stylized. Like, did you see Black Klansman?
I only saw the first half on a plane, so not a great viewing experience.
But just, interesting when that can work when it's something that's so filmic and stylized.
Yeah.
And then brings you back to, oh wait, real stuff here. Real
Dude,
talk,
the
guys.
torture shit.
Yeah.
Go down that rabbit hole. Go into like fucking turn of the century, or like
I've always wanted to go, like, that'd be one of my first
like
stops
1600s.
when I go to London or whatever. I think there's those ancient torture museums.
I've been to a couple of them. They're fucking awesome. There's like a dungeon museum that's really fucking, like, it doesn't seem like it's how do I describe this? You don't feel like you're going somewhere that you should be going into. Yeah. You're sort of like, is this actually a museum, or am I about to get murdered for real?
When you're surrounded by, when they're real murder devices, they carry that memory on them. You feel it when you walk into a room filled with the things. Yeah. Like a little bit of time travel there, you know?
Oh, for sure.
So yeah, that last section really won me over. And then too, just the way I love just how it got me thinking with the point that he was making that we kind of already said earlier, but just how relevant it is still today. We were talking about that in terms of the like suppression of women, the patriarchy, all that. But then the way as far as treating how we view mental illness. Yeah. For me, that really got me thinking, and this is just, I guess why I put this in what worked versus things of note is because how floored I was watching it, you know, the experience of watching it and thinking that it could inspire these thoughts and musings. But it really got me thinking of how, like, I guess I want to see what you think of it, of how, like, our society, the Western culture, capitalistic culture, it's all about assigning your worth to, like, how capable you are in the traditional, assigning your value to how capable you are in the traditional, like, working sense, versus the idea that everyone just has inherent value, like in that kind of, you know, the Native American way, the way that things should be. So in that light, when you have people are mentally not able, different, what is our response in this world? We brush them under the rug. Sure. Well, how do we not think about them?
Yeah, it's the compartmentalization of value. Yeah. Right? It's like, oh, you exist and are valuable if you fit into this compartment that we've decided is, you know, this particular thing, whatever the fucking thing is, able-bodied or something like that. It's the same thing as when it's like, when you compartmentalize a woman and say, oh, well, her value is, or her purpose is to have kids. No, it's fucking not. Like, that's one thing that they are capable of, but that's not their purpose. That's not the only thing that they represent. But, like, the world wants to make it simple. Yep. And, like, put people in fucking very particular frameworks so that they feel comfortable.
Do you think that...
And I hate that shit.
Do you think that in a lot of ways ties to trust in the world, as you just put it, where it's like we don't see... Since we don't have that inherent value that we're giving you, a big part of that is we don't want to trust you in a way, as far as, like, because we still need it's a form of control by not, like, assigning value to someone inherently, you know? It's like,
oh, you mean from our end?
Yeah, as far as, like, we don't give you well, no, just the world, as you put it, the society, whatever. It's like that and like to the mentally, you know, different, where it's we by I don't know, I kind of lost my train of thought. But you kind of see where it's like, but we take your sense of autonomy away by saying you have lesser value. Not autonomy, but just, again, maybe worth or capabilities, or it's just that kind of separation, like you already said.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's a it's a problem. You can do it to anything, right? It's fucking arbitrary. People think that they are the ones who get to decide how a thing is defined.
Here, it's less maybe trust. I think it has to do with not the people. But here, it's more about power. And I guess what I was getting at is
it's power and control.
Yeah.
And what do those things do? Like, generally, power and control, like, we seek that out so that we feel more comfortable.
Right.
But we have to be okay with being uncomfortable. That's how you fucking grow and progress.
Right.
Right. Individually and culturally.
Well, that thing that I think they're uncomfortable with, but in, like, terms of the witch hunts, is they weren't willing to trust these women that maybe when they say, I'm not a witch, you know, they can't give them that.
Or when they say, I don't want to get married.
Yeah, exactly.
What? You know, like, it's fucking nuts. Yeah. But that, you know, when you're the person who's in the role of authority, the you know, in this case, is sort of the patriarchy. If somebody else's worldview doesn't fall in line with yours, you decide that you don't like it, and that's fucked up.
More so, threatens yours versus
Sure.
Yeah.
People want things to be in the lane that they feel most comfortable with.
Right. And as you said, as a species, we should always be that little bit uncomfortable.
Definitely.
As individuals and collectively. Because the discomfort that comes from not growing, well, a shark, if it doesn't keep swimming, it will die.
That's right. That's true. So, there you go.
Should we talk about what didn't work?
Yeah.
All right. What did not work?
It's not ready yet.
Seems to work okay.
No, something important's missing.
What did not work?
I was lukewarm on the pseudo-documentary aspect. And I think only because
I was feeling
I wanted more of a sort of narrative thing, but like we got it. It's just, I don't know.
I think it was that I was at the beginning, I was having those feelings a bit because I was sitting there not knowing what it was and I didn't know how long it was going to go on for.
Yeah.
But now but I mean, it's still a full 2-hour movie. We get plenty to satisfy.
No, you're right.
Works. So it was all these, the things like that, which I agree with. And, that thinking maybe it was a little slow. I think that's all first time viewing things.
Yeah. I mean, I guess
hang-ups.
Maybe if it had been doled out a little more like in between the stories, I might have liked that better.
Yeah, it's a little,
but it's a choice.
It's traditional and maybe more of the time of just like, here's our first thing that we got to teach you.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot to mention in what worked though, a very tiny aspect. 2 things. I didn't mean to move on so quickly. Sorry to circle back a little. That just got me thinking how I thought the title cards were perfectly length. It didn't feel like we were sitting there too long. Like a lot of movies always do that. And of course, the original soundtrack, that is the version that you'll see. That's not the 60s version. If you seek out the film, is incredible.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that actually.
So maybe, save that for things of...
No, I mean, I need clarification as to whether or not the music we're listening to was the original intended music.
I believe so.
Okay, so if that's true, there are certain pieces that don't work for me.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man,
that's
good because we're in the section. But I thought, for the record, I thought it was all great. I loved the music.
By and large, I did too, but there are a couple brief sections where the music felt too happy and sort of up and jolly. And I was like, it just didn't quite
I know what you're talking about, but those were the sort of middle, like, you will take whatever you're projecting, like, from the scene in order to then bring, and you have to do that in order to have it mixed up. Otherwise, the stuff that wants to get a little more obviously spooky, it wouldn't stand out,
Yeah.
as much. Because they have the piece changes. But I don't know, it would be different. And again, like, something works where in the devilry, there's a sort of celebration behind it all. Like, it's...
Yeah.
There's different moods it is exploring.
I mean, I definitely get it. I think it just, from a personal aesthetic point of view, I would have liked more gothicness.
I just up the Bach the whole time.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
I mean, honestly, I didn't really have anything else.
The only other thing that it's not that it's just sort of the style. So it makes me wonder if, because I know that one of the versions, I don't know if it was the 60s version, had actual narration, spoken narration. I think that's what I read.
That which version?
Like the 60s one or something.
William S. Burroughs
that's right.
narrated the 60s one.
And it got me thinking as to whether I would enjoy the movie more if I was hearing spoken narration. And partially because of the construct of the documentary, if having it spoken would have, I don't know, pushed it along a little bit for me. I'm not sure.
I think I was feeling it too, as far as it could have been nice to just be able to watch it,
right,
and not have to feel like you're stopping reading. But here's the thing, like the written word is too perfect for like the tone of the written words themselves.
Yeah.
Like to have anything spoken aloud, it'd be, I think, too distracting for just kind of letting the mood emerge from the music and imagery.
So here's what I think actually I needed. We were seeing the cool blue like gothic text in Swedish, and then we were getting a shitty white like Courier New subtitle underneath that. And my brain, I kept trying to read the blue text, and I'd be like,
how many times did my eyes start there?
Exactly. Oh, like every time my eyes started there. So I would have liked to put the English into the upper and just replace it with the same text or the same font and color, but in English. I think that would have helped a ton for me to stay in the fucking like the vibe of the movie.
I agree with you there. I can easily argue for the other side. That's just the purest point of view.
I totally get
like,
that.
This language is part of the original language, is part of the aesthetic. This is how it was made originally. It just wishes more. I wish I could just turn on a switch and understand other languages.
Oh my god! Fuck, that'd be awesome.
But at the same, no, I'm with you as far as it was having that negative effect. But again, can argue the other way.
So the only other thing I have is sort of a philosophical question and maybe lack of understanding of the intention in the final bit about
comparing showers to burning alive.
No. It felt to me like the majority of the movie was kind of having this commentary about how fucked up it is that the culture honed in on women or individuals as and like, you know, demonize them, so to speak, or like hang them out to dry. But then we get to the section of quote unquote modern and the hysteria construct. And then it made me, I couldn't quite decide if the point of view was that this idea of hysteria, this condition of hysteria, does the filmmaker think that that's real and legit and was making the comparison that all along, all of this stuff that was thought of as witchcraft or witches, that was the wrong thinking, that it was actually all just hysteria, or vice versa? And I don't know how I feel about that conclusion, because then it seems like they're saying that hysteria is a real thing.
I think it's pretty exactly comparable to what we talked about, pretty exactly, to what we said about the ending of the diatribe at the end of Psycho, of the guy being like, this is how it is. This is our understanding, you know, as kind of this fact. And I think those terms like hysteria, that is just the current of at the time understanding of like, that is the latest science on this, you know, and I think it's just a sort of catch-all term for whatever, you know, people not doing so hot, people going down a certain hole and or the mentally unstable. And yeah, so I don't know. I just saw it as
I guess. Oh man, it's hard to parse out what I'm trying to get at. Is the filmmaker being self-aware in saying the world views hysteria? Is he outside of the opinion? Or is he making the opinion that hysteria is a legit condition?
I don't think I think kind of like the setup of just saying, here's what the historical setup, the matter of factness to that. Mm-hmm. It's its opposite. It's the equivalent of that, just in the sense of saying, here is our latest understanding.
Sure.
Like, in the 1919, it was they're suffering from hysteria.
Right.
You know?
Okay. I think that's fine.
I'd like to think that as a whole, he's someone because like a lot of curious people are who just want to learn in depth as much as they can about a breadth of a subject, that deep down there are people who are always questioning everything. Right. But at the same time, he's someone, who then delivers that all very just, how whatever words they have to describe it, that the latest belief is telling them.
I mean, I think I kind of want to believe, based on everything that came before that last kind of statement, that there's a missing kind of footnote that would be Christensen being like, I don't fucking have an opinion, but this is where we're at right now. You know what I mean? Like, he's not saying this is how he views it. He's just saying this is how the world views it.
Specifically the term hysteria?
Yeah, and just the connection of, like, women are subject to this, like, affliction. You know what I mean? And it's like,
I didn't see
we know that that's bullshit. Right. I guess that's sort of where I land.
About women specifically being subject. I think that was just, because he just had a whole movie that was focusing on, female witches.
Right.
And that he was going to use as sort of a modern example, like showing women in that position today still.
Right.
To just make the point of how it's still going on today. Not necessarily saying... I didn't get the sense that he was saying women are more susceptible to quote unquote hysteria.
Right. Okay. Or that, because now modern day, we know that whole idea is garbage.
The ones in hysterics were the men doing this to the women. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So anyway, that just gave me a kind of a little pause to try and figure out what the fuck was going on. Or try to guess what was going on in the filmmaker's, point of view. Well,
that feels pretty things of notey. So do you want to just get into that?
Sure.
All right. Last official section here. Things of note.
Things of note!
This should be interesting.
Well, there's the alternate version we already mentioned. That's just worth mentioning.
There's more than one, right? Aren't there two?
Well, there's the main one that was recut in the 60s and kind of took on a new popularity then, whereas had the narration to William S. Burroughs, was cut down to, I think, the 4 segments and had this like free jazz soundtrack to it. No. I watched some of it.
Oh, no.
It's like, I'm like, after watching the original, that was my exact reaction. But it was interesting because I could be like, if you're seeing this for the first, I get how this was sort of... and how we imagine the 60s scene being like, why people were into it.
Yeah. It's like when I discovered Metropolis with the Queen soundtrack. And I thought it was cool. And then I saw a live band that worked in metals. So not like rock metal, but like in actual metals. And they built all this soundscape out of sheet metal and pipes and whatever, and they found as much of the original score from Metropolis that they could and composed off of that score and used all of the metal stuff for effects like lightning and thunder and like electricity and all that shit and performed it live to the fucking restored film.
Oh my God.
It blew my fucking mind and it could never go back to the Queen version, obviously.
No, why would you? Even the actual soundtrack is incredible.
Yeah.
Dun dun bum bum bum. Anyway.
Sorry. Yeah.
That's
but
Metropolis.
I love that
We're here talking
thing
about
exists. As a thing of note, that there was this period in time when people were like, oh yeah, let's go grab these old movies and redo stuff in them.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
But in the long run, though, it's cool that it kept its popularity and sort of awareness up.
That's cool.
That's the silver lining there.
Mm-hmm.
The part I almost brought up earlier because I just wanted to question it. My question that I want to hear us attempt to answer. When the last section, when the woman, when he's like, oh, the actress wanted to try this thumb torture device, and we see her like put it on and smile and just kind of get a kick out of it. What do you think was her impulse there?
As to why she wanted to try it?
Yeah.
Maybe she's a witch.
Tim.
I don't know. I think that there's a fascination with the experience.
Yeah.
You know, and to toe the line of pain or torture or whatever is a pretty like what's the word? It's titillating.
Essentially asking you, Tim, what is the appeal of BDSM?
It's just that. It's torture in a safe place.
I just loved how like gleeful she looked, like, oh, this is so fun. Cool.
And then at the very end, right before they cut, you can see her going, that fucking hurts.
I guess the thing though that does separate it from S&M, or that I saw was unique in this, is that these old torture devices, I feel like there's also a sense in her that I observed of like wanting to empathize with people in that situation, like where you feel like you're doing something to almost be like, even though I don't totally feel you, because I don't even think you would want this for me to actually be tortured, I'm kind of like doing the motions as much as I can. And that's really wrapped up in a curiosity too.
Well, and maybe there's something to the shared experience and like the quote unquote, I've said that so many times. What's wrong with me? Why do I keep quote unquoting myself? The coven kind of idea that there is something to that. Like, humans are attracted to the belonging to a group feeling. And, and in the context of this and the context of patriarchy, women getting together and being in a group without men is so fucking threatening to certain men. Right? And so I think there's an appeal. And maybe it is just something that, I guess I feel this way in general. Like when you have a tight group of people that you share an experience with, your bond with them is really, really strong. I don't know if as a woman that exists in a different or more powerful way. Maybe it does. Let's ask some women we know. But maybe there's something to that is motivating the desire to have that experience of the torture device, to be a part of that thing, because there is a pull to that. I
have to admit, just like we had our experience the bachelor party, the akin to the boys' sleepover as a kid, that's unique.
Yeah.
Like, there's of course.
Yeah.
Women with women, it's always, whatever it looks like is going to be special, different, unique.
Yeah, and the difference between the imagination of the male imagination of what that looks like versus what actually is
when
going
you started
on.
off, we went on this thread starting off mentioning like a coven, that to connect to another thing of note, I thought it was really interesting. You see how this is the filmmaker who made The Witch, Robert Eggers. It's his favorite movies, of course.
Shocking.
And specifically though, like what really tuned me into that, and kind of how if he hadn't made The Witch, I would have wanted to make The Witch. It was totally like one of those films that's just like, where's the good like modern just kind of like witch like horror movie? And the point of inspiration that I took, that I think like I could see whether it was intentional or not, as kind of thread, was there was a moment in Häxan where it mentioned the witch's ointment being put on and then that gives them the ability to float or fly. Dude. So then there's just a horror. Dude, so then there's this kind
that is so cool.
Right, exactly. So how cool is that? And then for me, I think, okay, how do you do a straight-faced like horror film, serious horror film, and get us to buy that happening as like the reality of it? So spoilers if you haven't seen The Witch, but that's the big ending of The Witch, and that would be my answer to that is, oh, in order to buy like, you know, real people like getting to the point of this ecstatic flying is you make that the big climax, you know, everything. If that's so huge and hard for us to buy, make that the big thing you build to.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
it's just made me love seeing that connection between the films and how we got to see that film. And
also you reminded me of my favorite line of the whole movie, of this movie. Mm-hmm. Do you want to smell my ointment?
Yeah.
Yes, I do. No, I don't.
Do you... I don't even know if I want to... No, we already talked about the witch hunt stuff, the patriarchy. Mm-hmm. We kind of covered that. Mm-hmm. Well, okay, we'll be the first to admit we are the last people to be any kind of authority on this.
That's for sure.
But
well, I've been to Salem.
But do you think like the witch hunt could represent like patriarchy in its most extreme or peak patriarchy? Because I want to say by the very fact that it now still exists today is like it'll only be a higher peak, but at the same time just the idea of like literally, you know, holocausting women, it feels like that's just, yeah, patriarchy, sexism at its utter worst extreme.
You know, I think it's always at its worst.
Yeah.
You know, like no matter what, there's always going to be a group that picks another group.
Yeah. I think
and says that other group is other and they're evil.
Yeah,
and they have bad intentions and it's a fucking tool.
When you have something that's so evil, there's no lesser evil. We have an awareness of it that we have more nowadays doesn't change how horrible it is.
There's always going to be a third of the fucking population that buys into this bullshit of demonizing a group
until the 2/3 says no more,
I guess,
and enacts that into law.
Right, exactly, yeah.
And then generations go by and it's no longer an issue of is it in law or not.
Right, but it's always, I think it's just a matter of maybe brain type or something like that some percentage of people are always going to buy into or be easily swayed or affected by that way of looking at the world.
Yeah.
And so the insidious part is the motherfuckers who know it's bullshit, who use it as a tool to keep that third of the population on their side.
More and more, I don't...
See, I might be going... I've had this conversation before with a friend where I'm like, they know better. They might not.
I think they feel it, but more... I'm not saying exclusively at all, but just like the sense that I get, like we're last election cycle, I was so caught up with, you know, with I don't mean to get political. How do I talk around it?
Too late.
But you know, you say the news, let's say, talking around or ignoring the more progressive candidates, let's say. And really that being hard enough just to say, well, then it's so obvious, there's got to be an awareness. But I feel, you know, an overall awareness. Now, I'd still absolutely open to the idea that the people really in charge are entirely aware because they're the ones who have all the money and being threatened. But at the same time, as far as like the pundits, let's say, just sort of the status quo of the pundits, you see more and more when they're being then but when they are like those brief moments where they are being sort of sat down and maybe explained something, you see the genuine kind of like, oh, I never, okay, well, okay. And they're either going to meet that with an initial like scorn or or hopefully curiosity, but you see it a lot.
Often it's just a patent rejection of it because it's like, no, I can't go there.
That's that Chuck Todd guy is that exactly.
Oh, is he? I never pay attention to him.
Good.
Oh man. Yeah,
Just isn't it your job as a news person to be like open and just curious and then like ask them the thing, then decide? Like,
you would
why have such a predisposition to like, this is great. Not everyone's that way, but what were you going to say? Sorry,
I just
Tim.
think, there's people who, we all are looking at the world from a point of view that makes sense to us. And so like, I often have to stop myself in thinking like, how come doesn't this person realize, fill in the blank? And the answer is no, they don't. Right. Or maybe they do, but most likely they don't. We as people who are I think I over analyze or examine things. Like that's, not maybe to a fault, maybe not, whatever. That's just part of who I am. I'm a person who does that. And it's really easy to think that other people also do that, but they don't. It's some people do, some people don't.
I think the status quo is inherently on autopilot.
Often, yeah.
And it's only, when we progress when that status quo is challenged.
That's right.
And people are going to react in different ways to... Especially when it reaches such a point that's a real paradigm shift.
Yeah.
That's when it can be met with, hesitation and scorn.
Well, and think about the context of when this movie was made and how things changed. Maybe not
coming off World War I.
Yeah, maybe not because of this movie, but like, when did the code come in? Like 32 or something like that?
No, I think later than that.
Oh yeah, you're right. It was later, but like these movies like this were made, and people had a reaction to it. And I don't know how influential this particular movie was, but probably fairly. It's still around. We still like go to it and talk about it. So things like this were pushing that status quo most likely, and in this case, I think there was a reaction. Maybe due to obviously due to various things culturally that shifted, for people to go, it's too much. Like, we got to wrap it up and like make rules and stop because we don't want to expose people to this craziness.
Yeah.
Right. So the pendulum swings in both ways, dependent on who, is pulling the levers of power.
Yeah.
And so, we go through these cycles of, things being kind of people, like certain people getting into power and being like, no, we're going to fucking put a stop to a bunch of stuff. And sometimes the stuff is what you and I would consider stuff that shouldn't be stopped. And sometimes the stuff is things that you and I would consider is stuff that should be stopped.
Right. I think that's something I always have to...
And it just is, it's kind of undulating all the time.
I try to have, I guess, I think I acknowledge that we're all like on a spectrum for a reason, and there is like a natural balance,
sure,
I want to say, playing out exactly as it should, because it is so easy to get caught up in, if I think like, I'm someone who's like, this is how I see the world being, and I think I'm like good at having that sense.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, just get there as quickly as possible.
Right.
And then, but then I get so frustrated when then people respond with, oh, let's not rush into anything. And I'm like, when did I ever say that? Of course, we're going to think about how to do it right. I'm just trying to say this is where to get to, and there's nothing wrong with saying that. It doesn't mean thought isn't going to get put in it.
Right. But it's like our numbers, our podcast numbers. Mm-hmm. As long as the low points continue to never dip below the last low point.
Yes.
Then we're moving forward. And that's the slow, crawl of progress, or whatever the quote is. As long as it's moving generally in a upward way, we're cool.
God, that's the moral. The moral compass is, or whatever, but in the end, it's good.
Right. So,
I believe that.
Yeah. And it's cool that in film, we have these things that exist, like they're tangible things that we can look
it's
at.
so important. That's another one of my favorite quotes is that I actually know is, let's see, art is how we know ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And we get to have these things saved. I mean, we've obviously in history lost a fucking ton of stuff.
Thing of note aside is most of this dude's films, like after the fact and before, a lot of them are lost.
I'm not surprised, yeah. Well, fuck, dude. At least this one,
yeah,
this one didn't get lost because holy shit.
And yeah, thing of note there too. It's not lost. In fact, the Blu-ray, I'll say, is the way to go, because I was referring back to just the version on the Criterion channel that's streaming, and that looked like it was the earlier, like, 2000s restoration.
Really?
Where they did even another one most recently, like in the last few years, that is exclusive to the Blu-ray. And, like, I was so impressed. Like, the thing that kept I want to say strong as being floored, but the thing that really just kept getting me and I think helping me to engage with the film was how the Blu-ray didn't have any like film gate jumping or weaving. It was this steady image.
You're right.
And then just looking at the amount of lines and debris and all that too on their previous restoration, it's a world of difference. Like, so incredible. Like, they really got the film looking like probably the best it's ever looked.
Well,
and just
amazing.
a big part of that, it was just cool that no gate jumping, like super steady. It was really, really worth seeing this way.
Did you have in your notes, I don't remember where I saw this and I didn't look close enough, the cost of the most recent restoration? I thought I saw a number that was like $2 million.
Wow.
And I was like, holy fuck, is that true? And now I can't find where I saw that.
Seems like a bit much, but hey.
Yeah, maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if it took that long, I think it took a few years, then that can add up.
Yeah. Man, that poster is so sweet.
Yeah. The makers of the Blair Witch Project, their production company for that production was Haxan.
Oh,
as
cool.
a tribute to this film.
Nice.
You remember you were talking about at the beginning how...
Oh, it's Danish.
Yeah.
Is that right? That's what Wikipedia says. It's Danish. Häxan.
At the beginning of the film, you were saying...
Swedish, Danish, yeah.
Help me clarify, remember exactly what you're saying. But something about how, like, we forget that in 1922 people, like, were also like how we are now of just, they weren't all like, hey, how's it going? Da, da, da. Oh, the humanity, it wasn't just people were smart. They had an awareness. They're like, how it wasn't that long ago.
They read everything.
Yeah.
Like they knew way more like literature, like historical literature. Like they knew it. So like we know movies, you know what I mean?
So this quote just about the film from a critic for the New York Times in 1929, which just in itself was just emblematic of that, exactly what we're saying. Like, like film critics were in the 20s too, and for the New York Times, like so not used to seeing that back then. But his quote, it just sounded like a person that's like, oh, it could have been written today. His quote was, the picture is, for the most part, fantastically conceived and directed, holding the onlooker in a sort of medieval spell. Most of the characters seem to have stepped from primitive paintings.
Oh, man, so true.
Yeah. But just, like plucked from any the last 100 years that could be written.
I think what I'm saying in regards to that, the dissonance that we feel between how we view modern day and how we view the past of any era, really, is that we're basing our viewpoint on depiction, right? And it's been colored. It's not real. It's
been shot in black and white and then put color over it.
Yeah, it's an approximation of an era's reality. Well, and so when you think about it, there are obvious differences of like lifestyle and like language and certainly behavior to certain degrees, but on a fundamental level, 100 years ago, shit was not that fucking different in terms of the actual individual's like, persona, how they fucking feel, like their desires, their exposure to art in the world. Well, that could be varying depending on class, but whatever. It's not that different.
No.
Is it, I guess, and just my point.
I think the nail on the coffin is when you said their feel, because that's what's so incredible about film to me, and I think why I love it and pursuing it is this. And again, let's say it's a form of time travel. Is like the feeling is the thing. That's the handshake across time that this movie just gives us. Oh, there's the feel associated with it. That's can only come from this medium.
Yeah, but the human experience, the baseline things of the human condition, so to speak, is feelings of, really fundamental things: guilt, pleasure, desire, love, heartache, compassion. Like all of those things, they're consistent. They've been consistent in humans for fucking ever. Yeah. And to remember that and be able to kind of be transported to a time still with that fundamental baseline, to me, is really fucking cool and exciting.
And it's especially cool and exciting, and why we have a whole podcast about it is when it's, fear.
Yes. Fuck yes. And what's driving it? Because it's gonna be all of these underlying things. Yeah. Pride, guilt, stress, whatever. So, yeah. It's cool, man. Yeah, this was a good one.
Great.
I'm glad the witches made me pull it.
You do me a favor when posting it and stuff. You try to put the little umlauts or whatever those are called.
Yeah, I can definitely do that. I've learned how to do that.
Häxan.
Häxan.
Okay, do you got if that's it for you have it?
Yeah.
Häxan. Häxan.
I don't know where you're getting that off of. I don't know if that's actually right.
I'm getting it out off of howtopronounce.com, Swedish.
Oh, got it. Okay. Well, do you have a...
Should I put in Danish? Maybe it's different.
If we're... whatever. If we're... Tim, how about a recommendation if we're done with Häxan? But we aren't done with Häxan because you got to look this up.
Häxan.
Oh, that's the Danish one.
Häxan.
That's aggressive. Yeah, so my recommendation, I was torn because I had a couple, but I want to go to a book because I haven't done a book in a while. And there is a book called The Big Nowhere that is it's one of the first detective novels that I picked up. I think I read it when I was like 20-ish or something like that. I had kind of read more like fantasy stuff prior to this. But it's by James Ellroy, who's the guy who wrote LA Confidential. It's actually the second book in that LA Confidential chronicle. I don't know what it's called. I think the first one is the Black Dahlia. The second one is Big Nowhere. I think the third one is LA Confidential. And I think there's actually a fourth one called White Jazz. So whatever you call 4 books in a series. To me, Big Nowhere is by far the best of those. And it is fucking disturbing and dark and has some really great graphic shit in it, like graphicness. And it's about, if you're at all interested in LA and like the history of LA, which is a fairly young city, it takes place in 49, I think, 49 or 50. And it's about the police force and like the shit that was going on. James Ellroy's dad was on the police force.
LA Confidential.
Very much so. It's this. There are some characters that are in both. So it's just it's like one of the few books that I've read multiple times. It's so fucking good. So if you're into detective novels and like dark shit, like, cause it's about a killer and, a serial killer in that era and the police force and a few different, policemen and detectives that try to solve the case kind of thing. It is so fucking good.
Yeah. Make me want to read it.
Oh, I want to read it again. Somebody's got to have the rights to it and make a movie out of it. It's so fucking good.
My recommendation is dark as well, but I want to say more in the morose sense. Let's see. Maybe I don't know if that's the best word. but I watched last night. It's an animated film from '82 called The Plague Dogs, directed by Martin Rosen, who made Watership Down.
Oh, yeah.
So it's about two dogs. You know, they talk and stuff. We hear them. But this is the word I was looking for. It's one of the most somber, bleak films.
Oh, cool.
That I feel like I've ever seen. But I got caught up in this story, Tim. It's about these two dogs who are being like held, where they're being tested on, and you know, with all these other animals and tortured, and you're like, oh, this is real, you know. Yeah. It's that setting, and we see it all and kind of thing. That's, you know, it's animated. This is not a Disney film. And it's all about their you know, they escape at the way beginning, then it's about their subsequent kind of like people hunting for them, and then they're just kind of dealing with the real world, and they're like, they each have their own big like psychological issues that have only been exacerbated by being, you know, by the test done on them and whatever. It's pretty, and it's really intense. And then just this like this ending too. I watched it on the Criterion channel, and I learned there is an actual like longer full version that just became available on, I think it's a Shout Factory on Blu-ray. And that's the one. I mean, if this film had been that much longer, assuming then that would have made the ending that much more impactful. I'm sure that's the one to watch, but it was still perfectly great, the one that was available streaming.
Cool.
So it's called The Plague Dogs.
Man, I haven't seen a good animated movie in a while.
Yeah, they're accused by the media of like having whatever, one of the plague diseases or something. So people are hunting for them.
Oh boy. Cool, dude.
Yeah. My turn to pull from the hat. It is.
Have no idea. Oh, it must be, right? The witches pulled the last one.
Yeah. Via Tim.
That's right. I am a conduit.
And let's see what I conduit here. Oh, smaller one here. Shocker. One of Tim's favorite words.
Oh my God. Shocker. I have seen the poster for this movie like my whole life.
This is the, oops, I just put it back inside. So
great.
This is the Wes Craven one, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Cool.
It's like about a dude who gets the electric chair.
Yeah,
and I think he comes back to life or something, or haunts.
That I recognize too.
Yeah, exactly. I've seen the cover 1,000 times.
I'm sure I just put it in there.
This will be kitschy.
Yeah, trying to fill in my Wes Craven filmography.
Hell yeah.
Great. All right. Well, it's meant to be.
There you go.
So if you haven't seen it, you should watch it, so then you could watch it with us or talk about it with us.
Yeah.
Next week we'll be back for Shocker.
Yeah.
From 1989.
Hit us up on Instagram or Twitter or Gmail. All of those are dismembering horror, except for Twitter, which is dishorrorpod.
Yeah, great. I think that's it.
Yeah.
So then in closing, everyone, we mean it. Thanks for listening.
And we will see you next time.
Goodbye.